This episode of MotoringBox is proudly supported by Century Batteries.
Welcome back to MotoringBox. I'm Sean McKellar, and we've got our old friend, the BA XR6 Turbo here back in the garage because I've been busy custom making a new part for the dashboard. So a few weeks ago, you guys would have seen that I made a custom mock-up mount for a Haltech IC-7 dashboard, and I did have some successes with it, but it had some very major drawbacks as well. The main one being the absolute height of this thing is huge.
That's a huge bit.
My new mount is a lot lower, and when you've got the IC-7 actually mounted on this thing, it is a whole 3 centimeters lower than what this one is. So when the IC-7 goes down here into the front, you can see there is a substantial portion of it which is actually underneath the dash triangle here. So that is the main method I use to get the overall height of this thing down. This little front edge here is going to wrap around the back of the screen here on both sides, and I definitely need to do a lot of sanding, and before I go any further and spend the time refining this and getting it ready for paint and then painting it, let's make sure it works and there's no other issues with it. So do stick around for that, but in the meantime I've got another thing on the BA that I want to sort out today. And that is the reverse lockout solenoid on the gearbox. It's never actually worked ever since I put the Haltech plug and play ECU into the car. So it's like the gearbox reverse is just locked out 100% of the time. I've tried lots of different settings on the ECU itself, changing voltages and stuff, and also trying to chase the wiring, but the wiring's a bit of a nightmare. So rather than trying to troubleshoot that any further, I actually went online and bought a Michigan Motorsports reverse lockout, what do they call it? A reverse lockout delete. So this should be very simple to install. A single bolt, take the old solenoid off, stick this one on, tuck the existing wiring out of the way because we don't need it, and it should be good to go. So let's jump under there now and check it out. Now, I generally don't like jacking up half a car like this, but the thing we're after is here on the passenger side of the gearbox. If you see the cross member here, it's just over there. So I'll have to reach up from the other side of the cross member. But yeah, I'll put you guys here so you can see what's going on. The wiring loom in the engine bay of this car was quite hacked up when I bought it, and I had to repair it. So whether one of those wires is the wrong way around or something, there's just something that's not quite matching up. So yeah, unfortunately it means the lockout stopped working as soon as that Haltech ECU was installed. So yeah, you could troubleshoot it, and a lot of people in the comments will probably say this is the lazy way out, but it's going to fix it and it's going to be extremely easy. All right, so we've got the solenoid out, we've got it disconnected, so this wire here will need to be tucked up somewhere. But yeah, let's pull this out and I'll put our new one in. Now this solenoid delete kit had a spare spring in the pack, and I was just reading the instructions. Apparently that is a softer spring. So if we install this and it feels way too hard, then I'll need to pull it out and swap that spring over. All right, so that's been installed. We'll jump up into the car and we'll give the shifter a bit of a wiggle. Okay, so I've had the whole center console here taken off just because I've been mucking around with that screen installation, but if we go for reverse, I can actually do it. So it is still fairly strong, but that's probably what you want because you don't want to accidentally select reverse. But I used to have to use 2 hands to do this, but now I can do it with 1. So let's just confirm we got 1, 3, 5, reverse. Yeah, that is good news. So yeah, obviously this doesn't have a short shifter. If you do have a bit of slop in your shifter as well, you can try and tighten up this little mount here. Mine was a little bit loose when I bought the car 2 years ago. That is a handy tip. So yeah, this is obviously a stock shifter, and that little Michigan Motorsports solenoid delete is perfect. Good news. All right, let's get the car down. In a perfect world, you wouldn't really need one of those solenoid delete kits. You know, you should chase the wiring, you should work out why the stock system isn't working. But for now, that's fixed. What I'm going to do now though is we're going to slap our IC-7 into the car, see how it fits up, and yeah, take it for a spin to finish the video off. I may have made this a bit too tight. See, it fits okay without the connector, but trying to get that on is going to be a mission. This is the R&D which you don't see going into products which are for sale. This is probably why no one's done it before, because it's such a pain in the ass to try and do. If I could shave a little bit out of that connector, it's probably going to be enough to save it, you know? Okay, let's try this again. I've ground down the whole top of this connector, which means it doesn't clip in anymore, but the depth of this housing means the connector is going to be butting up against that anyway, so it's definitely not going to come unclipped, ever. Oh, yes. It is. So yeah, a little bit fiddly to install. It's definitely not a product I would sell commercially, because a lot of people would hate this, I think. From here though, it should just be a simple matter of clipping it in. Look at that. That is installed. Very rigid too. I reckon that's going to be fine. Okay, so you guys can judge the final installation. I think it looks really good. It does look high when you look at it like this, but if I put the camera right up against my eyes, which is pretty much here, you can see the line of the bonnet there, right? So if you follow that bonnet line around, the screen pretty much is level with it, or, you know, depending on where you have your head, it might go above the bonnet line a little bit, but it is not much at all. So that looks really cool. And yeah, you can see, I showed you guys in the previous video, but I have changed the color scheme of this IC-7 to match the blue and red gauges here on the stock cluster. So yeah, I think I'm onto a winner. It is a very tight fit. Hopefully it stays there. That's my main concern. If you did a really hard launch, is this thing gonna rip out of the dash and go flying? But I don't reckon it will. It's very sturdy. It's not moving at all, which is really impressive. So I've been trialing this IC-7 for a couple of days now, and I gotta say guys, this thing is gotta be one of the most favorite modifications I've ever done to a car. But I know it's controversial, and I even tried to take a couple of photos for Instagram yesterday, and I noticed on screen, it doesn't really look that great. You know, it doesn't really come across in any pictures or video how awesome it is to have an IC-7 right here on the top of your dash.
Look at me, sure. I'm the gauges now.
There's been a lot of comments saying, why didn't I just put it down here in front of my cluster? The reason for that is I love the stock standard cluster. I definitely want to keep it. I want to be able to see it. And this thing is really the ultimate set of gauges. You know, if you've got a triple gauge cluster like what I had, I could have put some can gauges in there, like Haltech sell them, they're about $500 each. But this thing is even better, like you can display anything you want. So at a glance, I can see all of my temps, I can see ignition, throttle position, battery. If I wanted to swap any of those out, I can. And it just looks the business. It looks really good. Your opinion may differ, and it doesn't look as good on video or camera, that's for sure. But look at this thing. I also have my little oil pressure hooked up, but it is not being calibrated yet. So some of the figures are a little bit off on that. So at the very least, it has some oil pressure. I just don't know exactly how much yet. So don't be too concerned about that. But yeah, check this thing out. See the little shift lights on there as well? Yeah, very cool. That's the first time I've seen those lights actually. I have to go easy on this thing because it does have no boost control at the moment, and it overboosts. So there is still a bit of a journey ahead with this car. But yeah, I'm really loving this screen, and it's something I'm going to keep working on. It's perfectly solidly mounted on there. Can't see any issues with that. It just needs to be finished now, so I'll be able to sand it off, give it a bit of a paint. I've been trialing some of that VHT Silver Satin, I think it's called. Same one I used on the Magna. I've tried it on this little center console piece here around the shifter. Looks really good. So I'm going to do the rest of the center console. I'm going to do the ICC, and then I'll also do the IC-7 holder there as well, so it's all perfectly matching silver. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. I'm stoked with it, to be honest. I think it looks really good. It kind of gives me FG Falcon vibes. You know, it's got that screen up tall on the FG dash. This is obviously a bit taller, but the fitment is pretty decent. Doesn't block my view of the windscreen. So yeah, I'm loving it. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your support. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.